Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Cropper here. You're joining me for an evening with Robert Frost. Selected poems of Robert Frost. This one is Introduction by Robert Graves. No relation. Now, I've just sort of read through this thing, and what I do is I read a few lines, and if it doesn't catch me, I go to the next poem. And if it does catch me, I put a little marker by it. And I've got some markers. So, we're just going to go through and read some of the poems that I've chosen. We're just going to go through and read some poems. Now, lovely little one. The first poem I read here, I discovered later after rereading the book several times. I just skipped it or it didn't quite strike me, and now it strikes me quite. So I like this first one. The second one struck me very hard the first time I read the book, so I was very familiar with it. So I had this weird thing, they're on the same page. We're on page 138. I had this weird experience where I was very, loved this poem. And the poem right above it, very short, little terse poem, I just ignored. I had perused it. Anyways. First I'm going to read you the one that I finally discovered after blah, blah, blah. You see whether or not I should have ignored it. I think it's quite a lovely little thing. I don't know why it escaped me. Escaped my fancy. The second one we're going to dwell on for just a bit. Okay, first poem that we're going to do. Dust of Snow. The way that a crow shook down on me the dust of snow from a hemlock tree has given my heart a change of mood and saved some part of a day I had rued. Lovely, short, lyric. Oh, lovely little poem, isn't it? The way that a crow shook down on me the dust of snow from a hemlock tree shows you a wintry scene, forest, bit of trees, no leaves on them, lovely bit. Lovely, I don't know why I didn't notice it. Now the next poem, which I'm about to get to, this one is epic. Epic. Nothing gold can stay. Nature's first green is gold, her hardest hue to hold. Her early leaf's a flower, but only so an hour. So leaf subsides to leaf, so Eden sank to grief. So dawn goes down to day. Nothing gold can stay. Ooh, that's meaty. That's got substance. Nothing gold can stay. That is a metaphysical claim. Poetry usually does make metaphysical claims. The way that I was so tickled with the previous one, the dust of snow and this, bird and stuff, is it didn't make a big metaphysical claim. And those are light-hearted poems. Those are easygoing poems. A poem that doesn't rhyme is very potentially offensive. There's a very small percentage of non-rhyming poems that aren't offensive. So you have to have rhyme beginning, then you rhyme, that's what a poem is. And then you see if you're light-hearted, talking about the dust of snow from a hemlock tree on a day, or are you heavy-hitting and talking about metaphysical claims and the nature of reality and saying that nothing gold can stay. Excuse me. Now, interestingly, and then we'll move on because we're done with these two poems. Interestingly, gold is immortal. It is not, it doesn't corrode, it's not chemically reactive. There are some acids that can dissolve it, but it's extraordinarily, you put a gold coin at the bottom of the ocean, come back in 1,000 years, dust it off, you've got a gold coin. Try that with an iron coin. Forget about it. So, gold has the property of staying. It stays. So when you say nothing gold can stay, metaphysical claim, because even gold can't stay. True, because eventually all atoms and protons will erode and decay. So, very true. The poet speaks truth sometimes when he doesn't know it. He just takes what he sees as true, extrapolates it, And he makes a truth that we have to continue unfolding and discovering as we go forward. It's a beautiful thing. Okay, there's one called A Peck of Gold. And if you want to have just a cute, quaint one, I don't want to spend time on it. It's A Peck of Gold by Robert Frost. It's cute. So I'm just going to skip that. Even though I have no time limit here, I want to give you the most important things to me. I don't want to fluff this. Alright, so now we're going to do one called The Flood. And this one I do want to not skip. I cannot skip this one. I made a little note here. And I'll tell you what the note is at the end. I guess I don't want to spoil it. Blood has been harder to dam back than water. Just when we think we have it impounded safe behind new barrier walls, and let it chafe, it breaks away in some new kind of slaughter. We choose to say it is let loose by the devil, but power of blood itself releases blood. It goes by might of being such a flood, held high at so unnatural a level. It will have outlet, brave and not so brave. Weapons of war and implements of peace are but the points at which it finds release. And now it is once more the tidal wave that when it has swept by leaves summits stained. Oh, blood will out. It cannot be contained. Place a wall around blood. See what happens. That's what he says. It's called a flood. It will come out. And the note that I wrote next to this poem when I first read it was 2015 Europe Refugee Crisis. I think that it's pretty apt. Rewind it and listen to it again if you want to listen to it in that light. Now, the next poem I'm certain you've heard, or you must be familiar with. It is a phrase that we hear, I don't know where, a lot. You judge for yourself whether or not you've heard this. Acquainted with the night. Are you familiar yet? You probably, yeah, but not quite, yeah, that sort of thing. I have been one acquainted with the night. I have walked out in rain and back in rain. I have outwalked the furthest city light. I have looked down the saddest city lane. I have passed by the watchman on his beat and dropped my eyes, unwilling to explain. I have stood still and stopped the sound of feet when far away an interrupted cry came over houses from another street, but not to call me back or say goodbye. And further still, at an unearthly height, one luminary clock against the sky proclaimed the time was neither wrong nor right. I have been one acquainted with the night. What do I like about that so much? I mean, it's about a guy walking by himself at night contemplatively. And it doesn't make any big metaphysical claims, so let's not put it in the category of having enormous import. But he's saying it's okay for you to be a loner or an outsider. The poem doesn't judge him for being out by himself, seemingly in the company of robbers and different unsavory characters. I don't know. Really, I just love the poem. I guess one thing about it is when you hear a phrase from the time you're young, then eventually you read the poem that the phrase comes from. I think that might have something to do with it. So, anyways, just a good poem or something. I don't know what it is. It's good. It's good. That's what we're doing, Poetry Hour. This is Poetry Hour with a beer. That's what this is. Now then, Unharvested. Here we find ourselves on page 199. And I will wet my whistle and we will try this. A scent of ripeness from over a wall, and come to leave the routine road and look for what had made me stall. There, sure enough, was an apple tree that had eased itself of its summer load, and of all but its trivial foliage free, now breathed as light as a lady's fan. For there had been an apple fall, and complete as the apple had given man. As complete as the apple had given man. The ground was one circle of solid red. May something go always unharvested. May much stay out of our stated plan. Apples or something forgotten and left, so smelling their sweetness would be no theft. Shouldn't there always be some bounty that we haven't taken into account, taken care of? Now, that's really come true. He was yearning for that sort of attitude to become more prevalent. Today, we can actually afford that. Nowadays, instead of harvesting the whales one at a time, which are quite large hydrocarbon units, instead of getting these hydrocarbon units from the ocean one at a time, we stick a straw in the ground and we harvest billions and billions of hydrocarbon units that have been compressed in these layers that are very old. And maybe there's geological parts to this as well. Maybe oil isn't purely biological. Anyways, now we don't just go around hunter-gatherer style. Now we do industrial, grab it from ancient, there's only so many whales alive right now. But what if you could get every single whale that lived, all of their bones and all of their bone marrow and all of their keratin, all of that for 100 million years? All of that together smashed in one layer. Now you're talking a resource, but if you just have 1 year worth of whales, you have to... Okay, so he's saying, won't there always be something unharvested that we... Now we can leave the whales unharvested. So thank God, or whoever, I'm an atheist, but thank somebody or something, thank the industrialists, thank John Galt for giving us the luxury of being able to have whales. Otherwise, we'd hunt them to extinction. You couldn't have them if people were starving to death. If everybody on the earth was all in a state of starvation, nobody would care about the whales. So it's only the fact that we have this industrial technology that can harvest these ancient hydrocarbons that gives us the ability to appreciate nature at all and then to preserve it. All right? That was a good poem. The next one is a poem that should become a central theme of the alt-right. And the alt-right's racist, so maybe, all this jargon has to settle down. I have a knee-jerk reaction to say, yeah, I'm on the alt-right, just to piss people off, but I'm not. I'm an objectivist. And these people are slightly racist, and they're anarchist, and they have ideas about socialist, utopian, as long as the people don't have a lot of melanin in their skin. Really insane stuff. So you cannot jump in any boats right now. Objectivists have to be, just like objectivists are. Can't make any alliances with people that aren't objectivists. But this next poem is the direction that the right has to go in. We have to move away from whatever has been going on. And it's been a disaster with the left and the welfare state and the government nannyism. And I don't see that it's going to get too far kicked back in this iteration, but by the 2040s or something, maybe we can make some real big headway. Who knows? There may be a sea change. What if the left had a tea party? What if they start moving in that direction? But anyways, here's what the right has to start having an attitude more of traditionalism. Okay? That's what we're going to look at here. Here's this poem about traditionalism and how we have to go forward in the future, being more traditional. The poem is called Provide, Provide, and we're on page 201. The witch that came, a withered hag, to wash the steps with pail and rag, was once the beauty Abishag. The picture pride of Hollywood, to many fall from great and good for you to doubt the likelihood. Die early and avoid the fate. Or, if predestined to die late, make up your mind to die in state. Make the whole stock exchange your own. If need be, occupy a throne, where nobody can call you crone. Some have relied on what they knew, others on being simply true. What worked for them might work for you. No memory of having starred atones for later disregard, or keeps the end from being hard. Be better, to go down dignified, with boughten friendship at your side, than none at all. Provide, provide. I'm going to revisit the last 6 lines. I think they're the best, or the most cogent, or no, I don't know. The whole thing's very good. No memory of having starred, being the star in a play or something. No memory of having starred atones for later disregard. Okay, so later on when people are spitting on you and kicking you, it doesn't really help you to say, I used to be wonderful. Everybody loves me, right? Nor does it keep the end from being hard. Better to go down dignified with boughten friendship at your side than none at all. Provide, provide. So provide for other people. They will be purchased by your provision and love you when you die. Or you will have no one. Now this is clearly a message mostly to men. Women are given a bit of a free pass in this because they can provide simply by giving birth. Men have to provide by sustaining the life. So a woman who gives birth to a child will have a link with that child even if she can't provide for it. But a man who gives birth to a child and can't provide for it is in a more precarious situation, and you can judge for yourself whether what I've just said is racist or whatever. So I think it's important that men be able to provide for their offspring, and I think that women provide for their offspring by providing the offspring. I think that's there. And I think that Mr. Frost agrees with us here. He says, provide, provide. Better to go down with boughten friendship by your side than none at all. Okay. Let's see. I'll skip that one because it doesn't jump out at me. And do you know the last one? This is going to be a denouement. This is a terrible denouement, but the last one is called America is Hard to See, and it's a bit about Columbus and this sort of thing. Columbus may have worked the wind a new and better way to end India, and also proved the world a ball, but how about the wherewithal? Not just for scientific news. Okay, probably a thing to be done on its own because it's a very long poem. And it's the last one I have marked in this book. Now, there are probably a half dozen other poems in this book that I would do that don't quite fit in the genre of just nice poems for this book. They sort of need to be done on their own as a whole production. Like the Columbus poem. All right, maybe not half a dozen, 2 or 3. All right, let me get honest with you. I've done a lot of what's valuable in this book. All right. There are probably a few poems I've missed. And the ballads, the ballads aren't just not a thing for me. I don't get into ballads. I don't know about this story, but give me a metaphysical thought. Give me a moral principle. Give me some common experience of humanity to savor. Don't tell me about Joe Schmo and his wedding. So the ballads and that sort of thing. All right. Anyway, there we are. Selected poems of Robert Frost. I suggest that you check about poetry. I know that when I do these videos about poetry, people are like, "What the hell?" and they don't watch it. I'll get 100 or 200 views the first day on a video about X, Y, or Z, and I'll get 35 or 40 views in the first year of a video on poetry. So I know what you people are up to. All right?